is helping connect people and businesses to new opportunities. In Morocco, OPEC fund-supported digital financial services are helping small businesses grow, making it easier to process payments, expand operations, and reach new customers. In Sri Lanka, OPEC fund-supported technology labs are helping around 10,000 students each year build skills for tomorrow's jobs. Across Pacific communities, telemedicine services supported by OPEC fund financing are helping patients access medical advice when distance stands in the way. Yet for billions of people, the digital world remains out of reach. More than 2.5 billion people still lack internet access, while many more are held back by limited skills, infrastructure, or affordability. Because digital transformation is not only about technology, it is about widening access to knowledge, markets, healthcare, and human potential. Together with our partners, the OPEC Fund is working to ensure the benefits of the digital age reach everyone.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The economics are clear. Connectivity does not follow growth, it drives it. It expands markets, boosts connectivity and productivity, and helps bring businesses into the formal economy. Just as an example, a 10% increase in broadband access can add more than a percentage point GDP growth in developing countries. Despite the potential, unfortunately, around 2.6 billion people remain offline, mostly in the global south. And closing that gap requires an estimated $1.6 trillion by the end of this decade. But there is also an opportunity. Universal broadband alone can create more than 24 million jobs by 2030. So today the question is, how can governments, development institutions, and the private sector work together to make it happen? And that's exactly what we'll explore in this discussion. I want to first welcome my panelists. We'll start with Her Excellency Dima Al-Yahya, Secretary General of the Digital Cooperation Organization. Her Excellency Dr. Margaret Schrambuck, former Austrian Minister of Digital and Economic Affairs and board member of Aramco Digital. Mr. Omar Al-Maidani, President and CEO of Vision Invest. Mr. Musab Al-Omar, Vice President of Strategy, OPEC Fund. And Ms. Alicia Montalvo, Vice President of Cooperation, Partnerships and Resources Mobilization in the Latin American and Caribbean Development Bank. And I'm so sorry if I butchered someone's name by mistake. Secretary General, I want to start with you. So countries are becoming more digitally connected. But what do they need in practice to participate effectively in the digital economy?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and congratulations to OPEC Fund for the 50th year anniversary. It's great to be here, and it's really heartwarming to see the focus on digital infrastructure being a backbone to development strategies for developing countries and countries that are embarking on transformation. If we look at our lives, our daily lives right now, we are very much dependent on digital connectivity and digital services. We look at digital as now a interconnected, we are living in an interconnected world because of digital, and therefore it is very fundamental that we ensure a resilient, sustainable digital infrastructure. And this is where in DCO we really bring to the table that digital infrastructure is not a luxury anymore. It's a necessity, and therefore it is as important as water and electricity, and therefore it needs to be not only invested in, but also protected. as well. And this is where cooperation is essential. Not only governments together, but also bringing in the private sector to help in bridging that divide that you have mentioned in the beginning of the panel.
Can you give us a small example of how they can work together to bridge this divide?
Well, definitely. We truly believe in DCO is that every stakeholder has a competitive advantage. And identifying these competitive advantages, linking the resources together can really help in leapfrogging and finding the right solutions. So if I would give an example, for instance, one of our member states is Rwanda. Rwanda is considered a very much advanced digital enabled government with a 99% connectivity, all digital solutions or digital services is online, as well as banking and so on. But only a portion of the population actually uses internet. So connectivity alone is not enough. They need affordability. We need affordable devices. We need affordable services. We need knowledge and human capital. And to solve that solution, we've seen in other of our member countries, the likes of Pakistan, the likes of Oman, low-cost devices manufacturing, which is the private sector. And this is where we created a new innovative model of a subscription base to provide these low-cost devices to the government of Rwanda. So it's a win-win situation for the national champions and the companies in our member states, as well as bridging a gap that we found in Rwanda.
Mr. Alizi, I want to ask you, why has digital transformation become such a priority for CAF? And what has the Latin American experience taught us?
Thank you very much. First of all, I think that it's very important that this closing panel is devoted to digitalization, because we all are aware that this is really a crucial element for development. In CAF, we have 24 countries in Latin American and Caribbean region, which means that we are working in a very diverse scenario. And that's why we celebrate very much this partnership we have with the OPEC fund, because we consider that the opportunities in the coming 5 years are very diverse too, as our countries. We see a lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges. And we have committed to increase our investment in the region up to $100 billion in the coming 5 years. And what we have done is to make sure that every single project introduces digitalization and technology as a cross-cutting element. I think that we all agree that digitalization is not a sectoral item, it's something different now. So that's why we are preparing our strategy in digitalization, and what we consider is important is going from access to impact. We think that this is crucial in the region, because the region has a lot of potential for developing new technologies. We have renewable energies, which means energy and technology goes together, specifically when we talk about data center, artificial intelligence, energy and technology go together. So we have potential for renewable energies. We have critical minerals, what we call strategic minerals for us, not only critical, but strategic for our countries. So this means that we are increasing our agenda, and we are developing projects in all the countries, but you should consider that now more than 30% of the people in the region don't have access to internet. This is the first thing we have to do, of course, but at the same time we need to make sure, as we have seen in the video, that health, education, transport, of course, energy, all these sectors need to incorporate technologies, and also we need to work very much in capabilities in the region. We have the resources, we have the people, but still we need, of course, to increase the financial mobilization. That's why we are working with many of the funds here, and we need also to work hard in capabilities, but the potential is huge.
So from Latin America to the EU, What can developing countries learn from the EU experience, especially when it comes to regulation and policy? And how important are these two factors when attracting investments into the digital sector?
Well, thanks first for inviting me. I'm from Austria, but I consider now Saudi my new home. So Austria is my original home and Saudi my new home. So I'm really happy to be with you here today and to discuss this very important topic. I think it's not so much what can be learned, but it's just the best practice model, what has worked. And one important topic is to tear down the silos and to support corporations. That is key. We need a central authority that has worked. What has not worked is to spread the responsibilities among different functions. So establishing like a Ministry of Digital Affairs together with economy, as it was in my case, or a strong state secretary, that's important to have budget power on the one hand side and decision power. And with this, we need to build an ecosystem very quickly where the different stakeholders find the room to develop. But we need this central authority. So second, what we need is a trust infrastructure, and I would today also not only say, so it's a digital identity, like I introduced ID Austria, and to be used, and we need data sovereignty. But I would also say in the age of AI, we need a trusted AI environment. So this is the second important topic. And the third is, we heard it's the digital infrastructure, the 5G. We are building in Saudi Arabia with Aramco Digital, which is my new head there, a 450 megahertz network, which is all for securing communication for industrial sector. So we need different infrastructures. We need to invest in data centers. And this is all three are key in my view and are important.
Just to follow up on that, sometimes the EU has become synonymous to over-regulation. Do you think over-regulation is important in the digital world, or it might hinder innovation?
Well, that's absolutely true. And Austria, when I became minister, only 6 months later, it was our turn in the European Union. And of course, there I saw, heading the Technical Council and the Trade Council, how over-regulated we can be. So it is important to look at both. You need a regulation to get investments, because if there is no trusted regulation, you will not attract investments. But on the other hand, you should not overdo it. So a good mix would be good. And looking at Saudi Arabia, what is so special about it is its absolute speed of transformation. Yeah, with Vision 2030 and what's going on in the different sectors, especially in the AI at the moment, this speedy or quick development is very important. So find a good middle way. Don't overdo it like sometimes there is a tendency in Europe to do it like this. Keep the speed, but also regulate in a way that you can be a trusted partner for the private sector for the investment attraction.
Mr. Omar, on that, the private sector, and from an investor's perspective, what makes digital infrastructure projects attractive?
First of all, good afternoon, and congrats to OPEC Fund on their 50th, and congrats to all of us in this room that are in the business of making an impact, that they are celebrating their 50th, because they've really been a key enabler. Just to give you context, from Vision Invest perspective, the second biggest capital allocation after energy transition is digital infrastructure. And if you ask me personally, I can see it outstripping energy transition in no time. The investment case is very strong in the emerging market. If you take Africa as an example, 2/3 of people born after 2010 are born in Africa. So just if you look at population demand, emerging market is where the demand is going to be. I think the question for the Global South is going to be, are you a consumer of digital services, or are you going to host cloud, data, and AI? And are you going to do that just to host your requirement, or are you going to do that to host the global requirement? Projects only become viable, and I think everybody on the panel here has been saying it, you need an ecosystem to enable it. But we've seen in emerging market that ecosystem happen, and happen quickly. We've just signed last week during the Tashkent Investment Forum our closure of the financing for our first data center in Uzbekistan. It's a 12 megawatt IT load, AI enabled, run with renewable energy, green hydrogen, battery storage. It's really going to be a showpiece. And we closed the financing on a non-recourse project financing perspective with OPEC Fund and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. I think this wouldn't have happened without a number of things preceding it. First of all, us being lucky to be a Saudi developer, to have benefited from the National Transformation Program that started in 2015, the vision of His Royal Highness of 2030, and the digital transformation that we had in the kingdom. But when we looked at Uzbekistan, which is an emerging market, 2017, their GDP was $70 billion. 2025, 148. 2026, the IMF is predicting it to be around $185 billion. Why? Leadership, vision, reform, transformation, understanding that digital transformation is very important, but more importantly, also looking at the other enablers. You cannot look at digital transformation without energy. The two are now superimposed. They are joined at the hip. And this is what we have seen in Uzbekistan. We have seen 23% of the grid being stable, renewable, and we have the base load. We have seen the connectivity is there. We can connect into a number of different markets, and we have seen the policy and the reforms making it happen. I believe that kind of recipe can easily be applied in all emerging markets, and I don't see any reason why that cannot be the case in Africa. In fact, we are about to make our first investment into Africa in the fiber optic and the connectivity play. Why? We believe that Africa, from a connectivity perspective, offers a lot, and it offers resilience to the GCC and to the globe. Thank you.
Salisi, how do you bring private capital into digital infrastructure, and what instruments is CAF using to help make that happen?
Okay. No, thank you very much. This is really a challenge, and that's why we are developing partnerships with many institutions, particularly with OPEC Fund. Yesterday we had a meeting of the Arab Coordination Group, where are all the funds participating in the OPEC. So we consider that it's important first to work very much on regulatory frameworks. This is something very important in the region. We need to make sure that the investment comes to a place where the rules are respected. So this is very important. Also, we need to reinforce the institutional frameworks, not only regulatory, but the institutions. And also, as I mentioned before, the capabilities. What we consider is that we need to avoid that the digital transformation becomes a new factor for asymmetries in the region. It's very important that we really make sure that all the investments reduce inequalities. So what we are doing now is to really create incentives, de-risking instruments. We are working in warranties. We just created an impact fund that one of the aims is to really reinforce the ecosystem, as the minister was mentioning, an ecosystem for investment in the technology. And I would like to mention that we, as CAF, we are working in the 3 dimensions of the transitions, not only the digital transformation, but also energy, of course, but environmental too. We consider that the three pieces should go together, specifically in the region where the biodiversity is very high, and we need also to make sure that we are able to develop technologies that take advantage of the biodiversity. innovation, genetic resources. I think that it's important that the private investors understand that the technology in the region has to be developed using the assets that the region has, mostly renewable energies, critical minerals, but also natural resources. And I think these three elements will make possible the new investments coming from, specifically from the OPEC countries. We are very looking forward to working very much with them. Yesterday in the meeting, we have identified many sectors, but one of the most important cross-cutting sector is the technology. So we will identify projects in El Salvador, for instance. In Peru, we have seen an interest in several of these funds. So this is part of our tasks now, how to increase our private portfolio, but also going together with the public portfolio too.
So as Mr. Omar said, like, energy is super important when it comes to the digital transformation. And sometimes it does come at the cost of renewable energy. Some countries do not have it, do not have the infrastructure, and need traditional oil and gas. Then what happens in this case? Alicia, still to you, yes.
Yes. Well, we consider in the region that we need to talk about the so-called just transition. The first thing is that people can have access to the energy, that our economy has the energy that it requires for being developed. So we, of course, are working in gas projects. We consider that it's very important that we work in this transition in a smart manner. So that's why, of course, we are promoting very much the green agenda, because we call ourselves the green bank in the region. 40%, more than 40% of our investment is devoted to green projects, but we still consider that the transition has to be just, take into account the different circumstances of the country. So that's why we will be working still with gas, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Musab. So we heard about the challenges, and the partners on stage have spoke about how they are trying to lessen the divide. What is the OPEC Fund doing?
First, a very good afternoon to everyone. We heard it the whole day. It's our 5th forum, which happens in a very special year for us, which is our 50th anniversary. And this year's edition has shown exactly how we are working across all regions and sectors. So how do we address it? Starts with how we work. Our 50th anniversary tagline is where partnership powers progress, says it all. 50 years, one simple model. We don't work alone. We bring the right partners around our partner country priorities. Every partnership, every dollar mobilized, that is our founding principle at work. As we heard this morning by our president, Dr. Al-Khalifa, we committed over 32 billion, which resulted with a total project cost of $240 billion across 125 countries. Working with partners are with us here in the room and many more. So our financing is catalytic by design. We co-finance, we crowd in, we structural deals that attract others. So every dollar we commit multiplies beyond our own balance sheet. So, and it's not only capital, it's also knowledge for us. So most powerful exchange is peer-to-peer. One country's digital identity system becomes another's blueprint. Yeah? We saw in the video different experiences, different regions in the beginning. So this, backed by financing and convening, we heard a lot about convening, that it accelerates progress beyond external advice alone. So finance, knowledge, partners aligned around partner country priorities, that has been our model for 50 years, and I believe this is the right model for this moment.
Your Excellency Dima, you gave the example of Rwanda earlier. I want to tap more onto that. How can countries learn from one another in this transformation?
Well, a very important question. I think what's important first is to identify the need itself. What are we looking for? You know, if I would talk about the AI the AI, we call it race or competition. And we do see the pressure of a lot of nations to either look into their computing power, talents, attracting the right investments, outwards investments as well. But have they identified what is their role in this race, in the AI race? So what is really important for us to identify is what do we really want to accomplish? And after we want to accomplish, we know what we want to accomplish in every nation, then we identify the gap, and then we can learn from other nations that went through the same experience that they went through, and connect the experiences together. So for instance, we have worked on the several projects like the Digital Economy Navigator that identifies the competitive advantage of every country. So not necessarily every country has to become the cloud hub or the AI producer or the semiconductor factory as we see right now. There are competitive advantages that a nation has that not any other nation can offer for the world. What is important to identify, where does that nation play in the value chain? Either in the AI development or in terms of the infrastructure enablement or talent, and after identifying it, connecting it to the right private sector that can implement these gaps, and then of course the MDBs that can help in financing such kind of initiatives. An example, we have been working with, on this project specifically with countries the likes of Pakistan, Rwanda, Cyprus, and also Oman. Each country has a different set of advantages. So if I would take, for example, Oman. Oman, access to submarine cables, more than 24 submarine cables. The cooling from the 400 meters from the surface of the ocean is 4 Celsius. So that's natural cooling for any disaster recovery or data center. And this gives them opportunity that they become a lucrative nation to host disaster recovery data centers, considering the investment that's happening in Saudi, in Qatar, and in Bahrain when it comes to the hyperscalers.
Thank you. Mr. Omar, I wanted to ask you, what's still the biggest barrier holding back investments? Is it the energy investment? Is it, for example, the AI buzzword? We're seeing everyone now use the word AI everywhere. So what's the biggest barrier here?
Well, I think we discussed a number of enablers. First, leadership. I think when we all heard Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of Barbados earlier this morning, we all got inspired. So I think we need leadership. This is really, believe me, it's a bottleneck. Without leadership, you're unable to transform ecosystems. So this is one. Second bottleneck, definitely, if you go one layer below, as we discussed it earlier, energy and digital infrastructure are just really married at the hip. Third, I think the bottleneck, and it's not really a bottleneck, but it's how do we get more of the ecosystem to communicate with one another? And I was speaking with Her Excellency Dima earlier today, and even though we're in the sector, it was the first time that we're meeting. And I could definitely tell how much added value the discussion, the communication, the interface, and the interaction with DCO would be for me as a private sector investor. I'm meeting later today with His Excellency Dr. Abdul Hamid. We've now have a model that we've done together in Tashkent. Now just imagine this partnership, together with this partnership, together with everybody else here in the room, how we could then take something that we've done together in Uzbekistan, test case the study, what were all the enablers that were done, and then be able to go out and market this exact same thing that is working. It's shovels in the ground. Our first 6 megawatt IT loads will be ready end of this year. How could we then take this and mushroom it? Because the reality of the matter, the investment that is required, we heard the figure of, I think you were mentioning it, $1.6 trillion. The good news is $1.6 trillion. The bad news, the Global South doesn't have 30 years to invest it. The reality of the matter is this is needed today. This investment needs to be mobilized today. And I think creating this ecosystem, in my opinion, is the biggest bottleneck. We need more of it. And we're happy to engage more and to support more on that front. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, Dr. Margaret, I have a question. So we're seeing now, for example, Elon Musk saying that artificial intelligence will become smarter than all human beings combined. And also we're seeing, for example, payments being done in splits of seconds. At the same time, this divide between countries is growing faster and faster. It's not comparable even to the dot-com boom. It's even faster than the invention of the computer. What should governments do today to at least mitigate this growing divide between countries when you have countries on the end of both spectrums?
Yeah, definitely it is. We cannot ignore AI, and as you mentioned, it's a buzzword, but it's much more. So it really changes our lives, our daily lives, our private lives, how we learn, how we communicate with each other, how we prepare ourselves for panels, for school exams, and so it's intrinsic to all our private, business, and public life. So this cannot be ignored, and it will be there and will accompany us. And we are only at the start of it. So I feel it's like we had this revolution of new energy, industrial revolution. Then now we are at a stage where we are really part of this huge transformation. And governments have a huge responsibility in this. So what they need to do is set the framework wisely, and they need to join. So it doesn't help to do it alone. It needs to be done in groups of countries, in the GCC, in the EU, in different, and finally should be a worldwide understanding of a human-centric AI approach. Yeah? So AI should serve us, and still the human should have the right for the final decision. Will we do without it, and will it change the jobs? I'm often asked that there will be so many people unemployed because of AI, and I come originally from the IT and telecom sector, so I was CEO of Telecom Austria, for example, and of course I don't like to see big tech companies especially laying off people very quickly recently, and this happened, and often they are an indicator. But we need to work against this with organizations, with the private sector, and the public sector, how to enable the people to get jobs. There is a lot that needs to be done. Yeah? So if you look at Europe, let me give you an example here. Here it's the healthcare and the aging society. So we are growing older. And also China, by the way, is growing older. Some say faster than it can innovate. And I'm living now in Saudi where average age is 26, which is, you all come from countries which is very young. So it's a huge opportunity of the global south with all these young people and the big need of the northern countries who need the support for both elderly people, healthcare, and so on. So there is a huge shift at the same time, but also a big opportunity.
Mr. Musab, I want to wrap this session with you and ask you, what is the OPEC Fund going to do today, and what are you putting on the table?
So,
sorry.
Yeah. So for 50 years, we've been working with developing countries. Not the largest institution in the room, but one of the most consistent partners. Today, we add a new chapter. We are launching our Digital Transformation Action Plan. Digital transformation is now our third cross-cutting priority under our Strategic Framework 2030, alongside climate action and food security. Also, we're committing at least $1.5 billion by 2030 for digital transformation. So for us, that signals where we believe the next 50 years of development will be shaped. It builds on what we've been doing across regions, again, as we saw in the beginning, in the video. So 50 years ago, our founders made a simple bet. Developing countries are stronger when they stand together. Yeah? So that bet has been the work of the OPEC Fund ever since. We now carry that ID to the digital age. Our task is to ensure that the next wave of opportunity reaches widely into the lives and economies of our partner countries. And here, I'll bring the second tagline of our 50th, which is from the South to the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that huge announcement, I leave you. Thank you so much for my esteemed panelists and to the esteemed guests for tuning in to this session.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, could we have another applause for our panelists? And may I ask you to give yourselves an applause for just the grace, the patience you've shown us all day long in leading these editorials and conversations. Thank you. Okay, so as we round off this session, before we break for bilaterals and other meetings, let me just express some courtesy and gratitude for all who've been here with us. For all the experts who've shared their insights and knowledge. Thank you all for your time. Thank you all for your commitments. And let's just remind you of the theme for the 5th edition of the Development Forum 2026, a transition that empowers the future. So as you go into your various bilaterals, let's remember what the Japanese proverb says, is that we are planting today the trees that will shade future generations. And may we do that. May we congratulate the OPEC Fund for International Development in acknowledging their 50th Golden Jubilee anniversary. And let's hope that together with partnerships, we can build for another 50 years. Thank you.